afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us here on the Labster webinar going over the integration within Google Classroom. My name is Drew Linder, and I am on the customer success team here at Labster. Here's a brief rundown of everything we'll be covering here today. We'll just give you a rundown on the onboarding process, different steps throughout that process as well. We'll also then dive into the simulation upload demonstration, where I'll actually walk through how to share simulations with Google Classroom, how to sync classes in Google Classroom, as well as how to look at the data. And then finally, we'll wrap up with going over some of the support resources we have, as well as best practices. And then at the end, we'll come back together and answer any questions that you may have. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat at any point in time, and we'll visit them at the end of this presentation. First of all, here is the overview of the onboarding process for Labster. So your school has purchased Labster. What is the next steps? The next steps will go as follows. Your customer success manager assigned to your school will be reaching out with an introduction email to kind of give you an idea of the overview on everything that will be coming down the pipeline. Then the next step is going to be to do the actual integration piece, where we will onboard instructors in our system, and they will receive the automated email for Google Classroom. And then we will have a training session that will be required for all faculty that will be using Labster in their classrooms. This will be held by the customer success managers and will be similar to what we'll be covering here today, just a deeper dive into the process as well as some of the resources we have available. And then finally, you'll have an opportunity to meet your account manager. The account manager comes in after the implementation process and can then be able to set every teacher up with course mapping, as well as checking in periodically throughout the course of the school year to ensure that everything is going well with Labster and Google Classroom. So here we are going to actually dive into how to add simulations in Google Classroom. So whenever teachers have received the automated email, they will be prompted to create their account within Labster. What you see on your screen here is what we just call the Labster portal. This is essentially where all teachers will go to find all different things around the simulations, including resources, and to share those directly with students. On the left side is my dashboard. So you'll see here I have a test course with my name. Here you have the ability to actually sync co-instructors. So if you sync a co-instructor, you are providing them with access at the same level as you have as the lead instructor for your classes. The co-instructors will be able to share simulations with students. They'll be able to edit simulations in any way, shape, or form. They will also be able to view any and all student data. So I always recommend making sure that you share or invite a co-instructor to join your classroom if you know that they will need access to all of those things. So now that I have my course set up, if I wanted to import a new course, I would simply have to click Import Course. From here, you'll select the institution that you are currently working in. I will choose the Labster internal option and then choose Next. What's really unique about Google Classroom is in Labster is with our newest updates, they will automatically sync classes from your Google Classroom using your email as the way to tie those courses to Labster. So you'll see here, I don't actually have the ability to import any new courses because they've already been synced automatically. I like to show this step in the process in the off chance that there is a glitch within the technology and you have to manually sync the classes. You will always have that opportunity. And here, rather than seeing the close button, you will see the list of classes to sync. You will select on that class and then choose to sync it. Once your classes are synced, the next step is going to be to add simulations. So here on the left side, I'll click the simulations button, and in the top right corner, I'm going to choose to add simulations. Here I'm going to be brought to our course catalog, which has 288 simulations currently available. 288 simulations can be quite overwhelming for a lot of teachers, so we have decided to actually include a filtering feature here along the top of my screen. You also have the ability here to dive into some pre-made course packages that our content team put together. So depending on the subject or content area you are working with, you will see that we have a variety of pre-made course packages depending on what exactly you are looking for. You will also have the ability here to actually search for a simulation. I will say, and something to note, is that it does work based on the actual name of the simulations or the specific subject. So if you are just looking for a keyword, it may not populate with the exact simulation that you're looking for. I'm going to just use the filter feature for the sake of the webinar here today. I'm going to choose the subject area of biology, and then I have the ability here to choose the education level. I always find myself defaulting to high school as a former teacher myself, so I'm going to choose the education level of high school, and now it's going to whittle down to 73 total results. You will also have the ability here to sort based on languages as well as devices, but you will have total transparency into which simulations have been translated and into which languages, as well as which simulations are compatible on a variety of devices. So now that I have my 73 high school biology simulations available, I'm going to scroll down and choose the simulation that I would like to assign to my students. Perhaps I'm looking at using biomes for a future unit, maybe into next week. But before I actually assign this to students, I want to make sure that it's exactly what I need for my students to be able to access some of the biomes information. You'll see some different key points of information here, including the rough time it would take the average student. You'll also see here are a few different symbols. So the first one is a laptop symbol. That means it's compatible on a laptop or a desktop computer. The next one, you'll see the little Apple symbol. That is designating that it is compatible on an iPad or a tablet. And then finally, the Chrome logo, which designates that this simulation is compatible with Chromebooks. Underneath those symbols, you'll see here that this is a high school biology simulation. You'll also note that higher ed has been marked off. That does not mean this is only for higher ed students. It simply means that there are some topics or some content area covered that may also be covered in a higher ed course as well. So what I always recommend is for teachers to actually click here on the simulation name. When choosing that name, it's going to open this small window up for you to kind of get a deeper level of understanding on the objectives and standards as it pertains to this simulation. You will also be able to adjust the settings here and choose a different language if it's been translated so far, as well as turning on accessibility mode, which refers to any students that are in need potentially of learning accommodations. You can turn accessibility mode on and it will apply those accommodations for students. Now for teachers, you will be able to take a deeper dive even further down into the simulation itself. By clicking on the details button here, you'll see it bring you to a new page. This is only for teachers, so we always stress the importance of not showing this page, or excuse me, sharing this page with students. There are answers to questions that are embedded within the simulation, and that will make the simulations much easier for students. But from here, teachers will have the ability to look at a few different resources that you have the option of using. Underneath the name of the simulation, you will see the lab report button. And the lab report button is a post-simulation reflection assignment. So the lab report will ask students 5 separate tasks that are a little bit more open-ended, and those same tasks will apply to every simulation. So the lab report does not change across any of the simulations. However, every simulation can be applied to the lab report template. The next resource we have is the lab manual. Now the lab manual is a little bit different in that it is more of like a textbook, but in a much more condensed version, and will set students up for success by providing them with some knowledge and understanding to make them successful when they launch into a simulation. Now, what's unique about the lab report and the lab manual is that they are both Google documents. So when you open them, you can make a copy of the document, and then you are welcome to edit and change, add any information as you see fit with your students. Another thing to note about the lab report and lab manual is that they are not embedded within the simulation. They are alongside the simulation and must be shared with students from the teachers. So either virtually by sharing it via email or by printing it out and sharing it hard copy for students. Now the read theory button is the actual scientific theory that will be taught within the course of the simulation. Throughout the simulation, students will also have access to the theory pages to understand what they are supposed to be learning when they conduct a simulation. Then finally, we have two different buttons for quiz questions. Within all of our simulations, there is an assessment piece, which will pause students periodically and ask them a multiple choice question. You'll see the word answered in parentheses here. This is the answer key to those quiz questions. The unanswered is the exact same document with the answers removed so that you can utilize that for yourselves as potentially an assessment template going forward. So you can actually pull the specific questions directly from the simulation and apply it to an assessment that you create on your own. Now, all of these resources are available to help you take a deeper dive and get a deeper level of understanding into the simulation without actually diving in and playing the simulation for yourself. If you would prefer to play the simulation for yourself, you'll see in the top corner here, you have the option to play the simulation. And this will launch the simulation for teachers and put them in the shoes of their students, and they'll be asked to complete the simulation as though they were a student. If you would prefer, our simulations also come complete with a screencast. The screencast here in the middle of my screen is simply a recording of the simulation being conducted. So rather than actually playing the simulation for yourself, you will just view it being completed. Now, the screencast does take a lot less time in most cases. So for example, this simulation, which takes about 35 minutes to complete, the screencast takes just under 18 minutes to watch. However, watching the screencast will not allow you to actually get into the simulation and move around the lab and do the tasks that your students will be asked to do, but it will provide you that opportunity and the glimpse into what the students will be seeing when they complete the simulation. Now, as I scroll down a little bit further, here on the right side, you'll see those simulation features again, including length and languages. Then you'll see here those objectives and standards along the right side again. On the left side, you'll see an about section, which just provides some brief highlights and a summary that goes along with the simulation. All the way down here, you'll see some actual screenshots that come directly from the simulation itself, just to give you an idea or a further idea on what the students will actually be seeing when they are conducting the biome simulation. Now I'm going to scroll up to the top because I know that this is a simulation that I want to share with my students. So I'm going to click Add to Course here. Something to note that is unique with our access methods and only unique within Google Classroom is that once you see the green notification that says it's been shared successfully, that means that this simulation is now a live assignment in my Google Classroom courses. So I always like to emphasize that in the case that a teacher wants to post a simulation, but maybe doesn't want students to conduct it at that moment in time. Just be wary of the fact that when you add it to your course, it does become a live simulation in Google Classroom. Now I'm going to head over to my Google Classroom course to kind of show you what exactly it will look like. So I will refresh my page here. And here you'll see that I've posted the biome simulation at 4:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's posted here in the stream. It does also post here in classwork as well. And this is exactly how students will actually access the simulations. So once a teacher has posted it here into Google Classroom, they'll have the ability to go in and edit it or copy the link to the assignment to post into a different folder within Google Classroom if they so choose. Now, when students actually click into Google Classroom, they won't need any Labster credentials to complete the simulation. They simply need to have access to your Google Classroom courses. When they click on a simulation link, they will see here, this is the About section from the resource pages. If I scroll down, there will be a link here prompting students to click the link, and it will open either in a new tab or in a new page, depending on the individual device settings, and then we'll start loading up the simulations for students to complete. Now, heading back to the portal, with that simulation that I've had posted now in my course, I have the ability to actually come into the portal side of things, and the one thing that you will be able to do from here is actually set the attempt limits. So if I so choose, I can adjust the attempt limits, which you'll see do default to an infinite number of attempts. I want students to complete have a total of 3 attempts to complete this simulation. So now that I've hit the plus button up to 3, I choose apply. And now when students log in and complete this simulation 3 times, they will no longer have access to those simulations. You will also have the ability here on the right side, if I were to click the 3 dots and choose to remove the simulation, it will then be removed from the portal, And then after a little bit of time, maybe about 10 minutes or so, it will then be removed from your Google Classroom courses as well. And that will also work vice versa. So if you remove an assignment from your Google Classroom, it will then reflect after some time in the portal as well. Now that we have some simulations shared in Google Classroom, the next step is to ensure that all of our students have access. As I mentioned at the beginning of our demonstration, Google Classroom and Labster do have an automated process that does sync not only classes, but it does sync rosters as well. So you'll see here I have a variety of my colleagues that have already synced and been able to access my courses. That does happen automatically when you start syncing your courses from Google Classroom into the Labster portal. You do have the ability, similar to when you need to import a course, you do have the ability to actually manually sync the student list. So if a student joins your class late, or for whatever reason, because we do work in the world of technology, there could be a glitch and a student doesn't actually get synced, you will have the ability to click Sync Student List and then choose which students need to be added to your course here in the Labster portal, and they will be added directly into the portal and will have access to any simulations that you post in your Google Classroom going forward. So now you'll also be able to monitor any statuses of the students. So if they are active, that means that they have access to those simulations. If a student were to populate here on this list and there is no status of active, it says invited, that means that the student's been invited, but they just have not been able to actually access the simulations, which means you would have to go back and actually manually sync that list again. Now moving on, now that we have all of our students ready to go, I'm going to click here on the grades, and this is where the data from the simulations will live. The overall grade data should push over to Google Classroom, but it won't give you a detailed look into the data. It will only give you the raw overall score, and it defaults to being out of 100. So you'll be able to see out of 100% what the students were able to score. In the portal, you'll actually be able to take a deeper dive into the simulation data by either toggling between per simulation or per student. If you choose per student, you'll see here on the left side, I can toggle between my colleagues, and then I can see how they've performed or not performed yet on the actual simulations themselves. So while I have a good number of simulations posted, I see that my colleague Megan has only completed this simulation so far, and I can see that data here. I can also see on the timestamp on when it was completed, which has the date and the time. If I were to choose per simulation, however, it just takes those exact same things and flip-flops them, where now rather than toggling between my students on the left, I'm toggling between the different simulations I have posted. Then underneath the simulation name, I will see all of the students that have either been assigned to complete that simulation or have completed it themselves already. From this view, teachers will actually have the ability to download the simulation data. Here you'll see a variety of different data sets that you can download. You can download all of the grade data, the course grade summary, or the simulation grade data directly to your computer, and it does download as an Excel file. One thing to note is the simulation engagement data set. This pertains to the surveys that come at the end of a simulation. So when a student has completed a simulation, they will be prompted with a brief, I believe it's a 2-question survey, just to give you some more insight on how the simulation went for them. So this is totally anecdotal for teachers to use to just keep their finger on the pulse of their classes as it pertains to the Labster simulations. Now from here, I can actually click on a student's name. So I'll use my colleague Melissa. And when I click on her name, it will open up this small window, which will break down every single attempt that she has done. I can see here that she's only done 1 attempt, but if she had done more attempts, I would have access to all of the attempts that she has attempted. One thing that I will say is that the best stickers, what I call it here, will always note which attempt of however many they've completed was their best attempt, and that data will also be the data that will be visible here. If you wish to see other attempts other than their best attempt, you would have to click on their name to be able to see the list of the attempts. Here you'll be able to see again the progress, the time spent, so it took her 9 minutes to complete this simulation, the score, and whether or not the simulation's been graded. There is a small arrow here just to the right. When I click on this arrow, it opens up another window that allows me the opportunity to see how Melissa performed on the quiz questions. Our quiz questions are unique in that a student cannot advance past the quiz question until they've answered it correctly. So you as the instructors will be able to actually view how many attempts it took the student before they answered it correctly. So you'll see here for the first one, she got it correct on the third try, and for the second one, she got it correct on the fourth try. Now you can utilize that information to actually understand where your students are in terms of mastering the different standards or objectives, or if they need to be retaught or move on, whatever it might be, you have total transparency into that student data. Now, that's pretty much it for the demonstration piece. The next step is going to be to actually walk through a few different best practices for students to ensure that they have that they are set up for success within Labster simulations. So you'll see here we have this best practices checklist. As long as a student is doing all of the do's and none of the don'ts, they should not have an issue with simulations running efficiently. I recommend that teachers share this resource directly with students, and it is available on our Labster web pages, so that students can always use this to check themselves either before launching a simulation, or if they happen to run into some type of technical glitch, they can double check to make sure that they're following all the do's. I will note also that we do have compatibility on the mobile app. It is live and running now. However, not every simulation has been uploaded to the mobile app. And so it is still a work in progress, as you can imagine, to upload 280 plus simulations to an app and make sure that they're compatible and there are no glitches. So there will be updates to that coming soon. I would recommend signing up for the newsletter from our Labster web pages to be able to be well informed and up to date with any updates as they come out from our team. So the last portion of our webinar here today is going to be just to run through some of the different support and resources we have available. So both the help and instructor resource page are actually available from your Labster portal here. In the bottom left-hand corner, if I hit instructor resources, that's going to open up the labster.com instructor resources. That is really expansive. I recommend coming here if you want to take a deeper dive and get a further level of understanding around Labster and who we are. You'll also be able to see Labster in the media. You'll see some blog posts, news articles, case studies, all available here. The next one is going to be our support button, and this is actually going to bring you to help.labster.com, which is our Labster Help Center. Here we have a wide range of different help articles for students, instructors, and others that are available to find via keyword search. So if you were looking for anything on Google Classroom, you can simply type in Google Classroom, and you'll start seeing some of our articles populate. And here you'll see just a few results that will come back right away for you. This is a great resource for students as well as teachers to come if you feel like you will want to try to solve an issue or a problem on your own. Then one of the best resources that we have available and is available on all Labster web pages is going to be in the bottom right-hand corner is a speech bubble. This speech bubble will open up and connect you directly with our support team. So after you have completed just a brief questionnaire to determine if you are a student or a teacher and what's been going on with your computer, you'll be connected directly with one of our support associates who can then help guide both teachers and students through any troubleshooting or problem solving that might need to happen. I do recommend using this resource specifically if you are in a time crunch. If you have a class coming in and notice that there's a glitch, utilize the help chat. I also recommend preaching this to students as well. Students are always encouraged to reach out to our support team if they run into any troubleshooting. It just brings them directly to the source and they can help get some support from our team in order to solve any issues that they may have. And the last resource that we have is our Community Campus Forum. And what the Community Campus Forum is a place for teachers to connect. So here we've kind of set up a virtual meeting room for teachers from around the world to actually come in, share resources, share tips or tricks, ideas on how they've used Labster in the classroom. And we wanted to make sure that teachers were incentivized in some way, shape, or form for sharing some of their tips and tricks. Now, when you come in and you actually make a post, you will earn a certain number of points for each of the posts that you provide for other teachers to access. As those points accumulate, you have the ability to actually earn different gift cards. So for example, you can earn an Amazon gift card that you can utilize towards resources that you need for your classroom or anything that you need. but we wanted to just provide an opportunity for teachers to connect, so that way when you are starting for the first time with Labster, you don't feel like you're doing it completely on your own. And that's all I have for you today. So are there any questions at this time?
I have not seen any questions come in, Drew, so I think we're good to go.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for your time here today. We appreciate the hard work teachers do day in and day out every year, but especially the last 2.5 years, given our circumstances with the COVID pandemic. And we do really appreciate and love all of our teachers. Thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your day and stay safe.